Welcome to another photographic adventure with Studio in the Wild. We're going to Oregon today, and I was invited to come up there to do a wildlife presentation. I stayed in the home of Gary and Judy Wagner, and we became dear friends and have maintained that friendship over the years. Gary has guided me several times over different parts of the United States. But as we went to Oregon, I was invited back by Gary, and he and his friend Rod Miller were going to guide me into the mountains to photograph elk. Well, we drove part of the way and then we began to climb. And they could smell the elk. It was really strange. These guys were like mountain goats themselves. They could climb more than anybody I ever saw. But anyway, eventually, Gary was calling, and we heard this elk from a long distance away, and we set up, and he was calling him in. But the elk surprised us. He came up on top of us just out of nowhere. He had stopped bugling back to Gary for a long time, and all of a sudden he's right on top of us. And I was able to get a photograph, as you see on the screen. And we knew there were other elk in the area, and we spotted a huge elk, a larger elk that you see, but we couldn't get up close on him. The next day, Gary and I came back, and he was calling, and he heard, the elk were calling back to him, and he located one, a good distance away, and you can see the photograph. Beautiful photography and opportunities that God gave us there in Oregon. It is a beautiful location. Oregon is mountainous and a just gorgeous landscape, and it's full of wildlife as well. And one time when I was there, Gary took me out and we began to look for mule deer. And they were everywhere. We could drive along the road and they would be along the side of the road, and we could photograph. And then, as you see, there's so much other wildlife that is in Oregon that made it just a wonderful trip. And I hope you enjoy the photographs. But there's one thing I'd like to share with you today, and that's about friendship. Gary and I have maintained a friendship over a number of years, and I'd like to read something about God says about friendship. It's found in John chapter 15. He said, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Ye are my friends if you do whatsoever I command you." You see, we can't demonstrate love for parents as children if we're disobedient. And we cannot say that we love God and live in disobedience to Him. And He calls a friend a person who honors Him as who He is and is willing to submit ourselves to Him as Lord and sovereign God over our lives, and to follow Him and obey His commands and His instruction in our life, because He is due that respect and that obedience because of who He is. And so I pray that you can be counted as a friend of God today. He'd call you friend when you live in obedience to Him. I just want to be a friend of God. I hope you do too as well. God bless you. Catch us next time on another photographic adventure.